I'm backing up my truck, I'm gonna hook it up, loading up my boat with all my gear. I've been working hard all week, trying to make ends meet, spending time wishing I was fishing. Oh, Terry Wickstrom wants to take you fishing. Gather up your gear and come along. Well, Terry Wickstrom wants to take you fishing.
This is Terry Wickstrom. Join Karen Cullum, Greg Plaggio, and me as we take you to some of our favorite fishing spots from Colorado to Minnesota, the Arctic Circle to Central America and beyond. As we revisit episodes of Mountain States Fishing and Angling Adventures Television on the best of fishing with Terry Wickstrom.
Hey, we're out here today on the shores of Boyd Lake Reservoir in the northern Front Range of Colorado. If you recognize this guy, he's been on the show a few times before. Jeff, great to fish with you again.
It's good to be out with you again today, Terry.
What we're going to do today is really fun fishing.
Right.
We're not out here to catch giant fish or to hunt for those 10-pound walleyes, but we're going to catch a lot of fish. The white bass are hitting at Boyd Lake and on the surface and on spoons. What we're hoping to do is early in the morning, hopefully they'll be boiling on the surface. We're going to get them on poppers and maybe a few crankbaits. And then later on in the day, as they quit hitting the surface and settle back down, we hope to spoon them up and catch them on jigging spoons. And it's just fun fishing. When we get into them, it'll be nonstop.
Oh yeah, it just gets to the point to where it gets pandemonium. I mean, you can't cast fast enough hardly sometimes, so it's a lot of fun.
If you live near Boyd, or if you live near any lake in this part of the western United States that has white bass and shad in it, we're in the second week of September. Surface bite probably starts in the summer, starts to slow down as you get probably into September, maybe, and then the spoon bite just gets better and better. We're kind of in between. We're hoping to do both today, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to show you some lures, some techniques, and a little bit more about Boyd Lake and the white bass, so join us out on the water. All right. Fishing white bass.
What a white.
All right, way to go. This is what we came out here for. Are you going to keep a bunch?
I think I'm going to throw these back today. If we get some bigger ones, I might.
I wouldn't mind taking a few home to fry up. We can keep, how many can we keep?
10 apiece.
10 apiece? Well,
yep.
We'll just see if we put a few. You can let that one go for a bigger one. But right away, I mean, like a third cast of the day.
Yep.
Boyd Lake, just outside of Loveland, Colorado. And we're not fishing for giant fish, although you never know what's going to happen. We're going to be basic fishing today. A little bit of top water, throwing some poppers early. And then we're going to do some spooning when the sun comes up a little bit and try to catch them a little deeper. But it's techniques you can use for a lot of fish, and we'll be telling you about them. So kind of tell people exactly what you're doing there, Jeff.
Basically, what we've been doing is coming out here and you just watch for the birds is the main thing. In September, the whites will push the shad up to the top, of course, like this right here. And as they push the shad up, the birds kind of key in as to where the fish are a lot of times, even if you don't see them coming up. And then after they go down, then you just can find them on the graph, and they can be anywhere from 10 to, 25 foot, I guess.
Yep.
And find a big pile of shad on the graph, and if you're marking fish below them, you can drop that spoon down to that level and then catch them on the spoon also.
And we'll show you and tell you more about the techniques we use, but spooning especially, what we're going to get into later. We're out here, it's getting towards the middle of September. And when you get into the fall, spooning can be just a great way to catch fish. And these shad-based reservoirs in the west, I've caught walleyes, wipers, white bass, crappies, largemouth, smallmouth, just about everything is out there, because what happens, the shad are schooled up and everything's eating them. But right now there's been a great white bass bite. It's probably a little early in the fall for some of the others to be real active yet, but it's going to start. Just going to come out here, catch a bunch, throw a few in the live well to pan fry, and have a good time.
Absolutely.
All right, on the top. That is so much fun. Pop and pop and pop and boom. I don't think it's a very big one, mine, but
nope, I got a real small one too.
But I tell you, when you see them popping at the top, working poppers, let's show them what we're using, kind of give them an idea of what we're throwing here.
Okay.
And folks, I'll tell you, this is the kind of fishing. It's right in your backyard. You can come out and catch these all day long. Now, you're not going to catch them on the surface all day long, probably, but when they're working like this, it's so much fun. And I'll get mine on hooked here. The only thing I hate about this is getting whole bunches of trebles, because he always manages to get them both in them.
And sometimes it's almost better to clip a couple of the hooks off.
I know.
When you're really getting into them.
There we go, get them hooked. As you can see, these are just pan-sized fish. You know, they're a lot about the same size, these white bass, when they're this size, like crappies. And you know, if you want to keep a few, there's nothing wrong with keeping this size. They're really prolific. We're going to wait, hopefully get into some bigger fish. There's been 2 year classes out here this year on the lake. There's been that size, and then another year class that's been about 1.5 to 2 pounds.
Right.
We're hoping to get into those bigger ones, keep a mess each for the frying pan, because white bass they're a panfish. They're very prolific and really good to eat, and they do well in these lakes.
Absolutely.
You wouldn't want to come out day after day after day and harvest them, but there's nothing wrong with coming out here and taking a few home. That's part of this kind of fishing.
Absolutely, and they're great eating. You know, a lot of people, they think, oh, I don't like white bass, and one of the things, if they cut that red meat out, that's one of the biggest things.
There's a little red stripe by the lateral line. If you cut that out when you clean them, they're just pure white meat, and they're really good to eat. And right now, let's show them. We're just showing the same model of a popper, different color. It doesn't seem to make any difference. And we're just working them along the surface. Now, it's fairly early in the morning. We actually got out here a little after the bite because I was too lazy to get up early enough to get into the main bite. But we're going to catch them on the surface for a while, and then we're going to switch over and get them deep on spooning and show you this continues during the day. But the main idea of today's show is to teach you that you don't have, fishing isn't always about making long trips, and it isn't always about going after trophy fish.
Right.
It's just sometimes out here having fun. You know, a lot of people just don't catch a lot of fish.
Right.
You get a white bass bite going, you had your kids out.
Yeah, 4 years old and catching white bass, you know, it was just fantastic. It's a great way to do it.
And this fishing's right in your backyard. You can come out, it's Boyd Reservoir just outside of Loveland. And there's lakes like this. Wherever you live in the Mountain States region, there's lakes like this that have this type of fish. White bass are pretty common in the West. And you know, a big white bass is 2 pounds.
Right.
They're not going to get much bigger than that. But the action can be steady, and it can be fun, and it's easy to do. We'll show you how to do it. Go to a lake near you in the fall and just enjoy this.
Absolutely.
Let's get some more.
All right.
Now, Jeff, you said you're using a pretty steady retrieve.
Right.
Just
right.
bloop, bloop.
Yep, just kind of keeping it moving, you know.
And I've been using, I pause a little bit now and then. Doesn't seem, but you know, that's kind of the nature. You know, both of us bass fishing in our early careers, and you still do a lot of it. You tend to use surface baits a lot, and it's not a walking surface bait, a little more difficult to use, but a popper really isn't too bad to use. So Jeff's kind of, let me cast this out again, and I'll show you what he's doing. He's kind of just pop, 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 never really letting it sit, just like that. What I like to do is pop, 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 2-3 times, let it sit a second, pop, 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 let it sit. And I'm not sure which retrieve is better. The fish will tell you what they like. I guess that pause for me is just instinct over years. That's how I've always used them. Now I'll show you what happens here. This one was right by the boat, and he's hooked on the side. Well, he's actually got the front hook by his mouth. I'll show you what happens with these. If I can get him before he gets me here. They don't want to open their mouth, these little things, so I'm going to lay him down. I want to show you how he's hooked once I get a good hold of him here. Because this happens a lot when you're doing this kind of fishing. Open your mouth. This will happen a lot when you're doing this kind of fishing. The front hook is up by the front of him, the back hook, because that's where he hit it. But he's also hooked in the side because he turned as soon as he got the hook in him. And got both hooks. So you got to be a little careful when you're throwing these poppers for him. Not a bad idea to have a pair of pliers because they get hooked on the outside like this. And they'll get those hooks in. You got to be careful. You don't want to get a treble hook in you and spoil the fun. But what happens, while he didn't actually have it in his mouth, they strike at it, they get the first hook up there, and they turn right away, and you have good sharp hooks so you don't lose the fish, and they get it in the side. But one right after another. We'll get into some bigger ones hopefully before the end of the day, but the action is steady. We've just had, I don't know, we've had a half a dozen already. We've been fishing for 20 minutes.
Right.
So it's just fun, fast fishing, and tell you what, seeing them hit a surface bait, even though they're small fish, is just a lot of fun. These birds diving, I tell you what, folks, a lot of people are going to wonder, how do I find these fish? You come out on a lake like this. Well, there's a couple ways. When they're surface feeding, you're probably not going to see them on your electronics because they're too close. You may see some down there, but you really watch the surface for surfacing fish and bird activity. This activity right here, That means those fish are chasing the shad up to the surface. Now you don't want to motor right into it, you just want to get close enough to cast to that area or you'll put the fish down. But those birds are eating the shad that the fish are underneath pushing up. And that's where we're going to throw our surface lures. So it could be anywhere in the lake. So it's not kind of like you go off a point or a hump or anything. We're right out in the middle of the lake. So what you've got to do is just watch for bird and surface activity and then motor around, but don't go right into them. Later on when we're spooning for them, we're going to use our electronics more and look for them deeper. But right now, this is our telltale sign. This is our fish finder, these birds schooling. In addition to these surface, a lot of people might not have surface poppers or be comfortable working. This same bite, you can take small crankbaits that are about the size of the shad that don't dive very deep, like little Rapala types, little floating ones, all those types of baits. And a lot of times you can, that was him casting.
Oh.
A lot of times you can get just as much action on those. It isn't quite the same because it dives under the surface a little bit, but sometimes the action's even faster.
Right, right.
Wow, it is so much fun. I tell you, it is so great, just boom, boop, 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 and they just hit it. And I tell you, I don't even know how many we've caught already. Just a blast. This one's hooked nice. Well, he was hooked nice till he flopped and got the other hook in him. So we'll try to get him out without hooking the fisherman. That's always the good thing. I got really sharp hooks on these, so I have to be careful. But if you don't have sharp hooks, they tend to hit, and then you don't get a hook up. Good pair of pliers is always handy.
Oh, there we go.
Got one?
Yep.
I'll tell you, the action, one of the things that makes this kind of fishing fun is the action is just so constant.
Settle down. Dangerous.
Yeah, I'm gonna just shake him off in the water so I don't get a treble on me. They're good hardy fish. You don't have to handle them like a trout, but I'll tell you what, it's just fun. And we could have actually had almost a limit in the boat already if we wanted to. But we know we're gonna catch a lot of them. We'll take a few home, and if we end up not keeping as many as we want, that's fine too. It's just having a good time and constant action. Most people don't understand how to work a spoon. They tend to just jiggle it down there like this. That's okay once in a while, but we're fishing with no bait. What you need to do is, let me get this up and I'll show you what you got to do with the spoon to make it work. Whoa, get it up in a hurry. But when you're fishing a jigging spoon, up and down a little bit is okay, but that's really not usually what triggers unless the bite is crazy. What usually triggers them is you get that spoon up high enough where it turns over flat and it flutters down. Looks like a dying shad fluttering through the water. So the retrieve is a nice solid 2-3 foot pop and then follow it down with a semi-tight line. You usually hit while it's falling or right when it pauses at the end of the drop.
There's one.
Got one?
Yep.
There you go. Good job.
Man, they pull for their size, don't they?
They are. They're just fun and strong. Now, you've got a little wider spoon than I do. I've had a lot of luck in the past with this narrow spoon, but if you catch more fish than me, I'll know it's not ability and I'll switch to another spoon. You can't possibly be a better fisherman than me.
No.
Well, that is a pot. You could be.
Yeah, there we go.
All right.
There we go. There's a better one. That's the kind we're after right there.
There we go.
I knew that was a little better one.
Good. Well, that's definitely, let's get that one up to the audience here. Get a thumb in there.
That's
There,
a little better one.
A little better sized one. And if we can get a bunch of those, I'm gonna have to quit keeping small ones now so I can get big ones.
You have to start culling, Terry,
Yeah.
like in a tournament.
It's got a live well full of fish. I don't think that's legal in Colorado.
No, it's not.
But so we'll just get our limit and have fun, and when we get close to it, we'll start releasing fish so we can keep fishing and just have a good time. There you go. That's nice white bass though. Well, you know, how come I'm putting your fish in a live well, you get to keep fishing?
I don't know.
I'll tell you how this spooning works, and I think I got a pretty good one.
Yeah, that looks, no,
It's strong.
just strong.
Let me tell you how this spooning works, folks. We get, it's all about locating the fish. When we were fishing on the surface, I'm gonna keep this one, it's a decent one. We were fishing to boils, and that's how we locate the fish. Now he's watching the graph, and we moved till we're over either bait or fish, put our jigs down. Hadn't even stopped the boat. He goes, there's some, both put our spoons down, never got to bottom, we were into fish. So when you're over them, you're gonna catch them. The key to the spooning is nothing on your graph. Don't waste a lot of time jigging with your spoon because you're just doing it for nothing. You may get a stray fish here and there. Watch your graph, watch your electronics. As soon as you see fish, get those spoons down and work them. You'll get bit almost right away. It's a reaction bite. They're on the feed of these shad and you'll just hook up and like you see, doubles are nothing. Well, Jeff, the bite kind of slowed down, so we're probably going to call it a day, but not because we didn't catch plenty of fish. We almost got a couple limits in the live well. We could have kept easily, could have filled out like no problem. We caught a ton of fish. It's been just great. I want to talk once more about the tackle we use, show them the lures. Before we do that, this is kind of typical. Now, we're second week in September, and you're going to get an early and late bite, especially on the surface this time of the year. You may get a spoon bite. We got a spoon bite for a while, but it kind of dropped off. I think if we waited till later in the day, or if it was a brighter sunny day, then it's kind of cloudy today, we'd probably wouldn't have had as long a topwater bite. The spoon bite would be better later.
Right.
As you get further into the year, the spoon bite's going to be better, and you won't have as much topwater bite. And that spoon bite becomes banker's hours fishing. Once those fish get deep consistently, you can come out here in October. It's a noontime bite sometimes, and it's just beautiful. You don't have to get up early. So keep that in mind. You know, when you're looking at the lakes where you're at, white bass, wipers, chasing shad, it's just phenomenal, and what a great time. What fun fishing.
It is. It's just a blast. It's what you were talking about before. It's great for kids.
You had your kids out here earlier?
Exactly.
Is your son that was telling you how to fish?
Yeah.
He's in the back of the boat?
The 4-year-old back there trying to tell me how to use a spoon, you know.
Yeah, he was back there saying, you got to put it down in the bottom. He was catching so many fish, so it's not complicated fishing. As you saw, once it's on, you'll catch a lot of fish. What I want to do is kind of show you the tackle we used again, and so maybe you can get out there and try this. Now, when I started out today, I was actually using a popper just like this. You had the same model, only a different color, and we'll give you close-ups of all these lures, and the bite was on the surface. And boy, what we would do is we'd watch for those birds, run these poppers through the surfacing fish, and when you got into a boil of them, you almost couldn't cast without catching a fish.
Right.
I wanted to try a little different approach, so I actually switched to a crankbait on a spinning rod. Some people might have trouble throwing a lure on a bait caster. We use both bait. You don't need complicated tackle for this. Took this small crankbait that looks like a shad. Again, we'll give you close-ups of all these. Put that on a spinning rod with about 8-pound test so I could cast it real easy because it's light. And I caught, when we got in those boils, it was every cast.
Sure.
It was just unbelievable. So you want to get something shad-like or something that bubbles the surface when they're active. A lot of times you throw a jig or throw your spoon right into that bubble. When on the surface, you'll get a bite.
Right.
Then when the fish started going down, we kind of switched over and show them some of the spoons you use there.
Went with one is just a bomber slab spoon, made by Bomber Company, and then also crippled herring type spoons work real well also.
And we'll get you close-ups of all these, but basically just a number of small jigging spoons. And I use this kind of a generic, nondescript spoon. Caught a number of fish on that. Switched over to one of my favorites made by Northland Tackle, this bucktail spoon with the rattles in it, little more of a flutter to it, and a little more colors. They all worked.
Yeah.
Now, you know, when you get into a tough bite, sometimes changing spoons or a different spoon will make a difference. I think today it was just a matter of finding the fish.
Right.
When we were over active fish, we got the spoon down to them. Remember, the key was to pop it up, though. You had to pop it up 2-3 feet and let it flutter down, and they'd almost always hit it while it was falling. Don't just boom, boom, boom. You won't get many bites. Pop that up there, let it flutter down. I'll tell you what, it's just a great way to fish. You can do that with a spinning rod or a bait caster. Use a spinning rod. Make sure it's one that's stiff enough so that you pop that spoon up. Otherwise, the rod bends when you pop up, and you just kind of go up and down. Real key to pop that up. People don't get aggressive enough with spoons sometimes.
Right. And that's definitely the key. Like you said, sometimes it's, you know, all the way up over your head, and then on just a semi-slack line, letting it fall, and you'll feel that bump, or either that, like we were talking about, your line just goes slack.
It does, and then pause a little bit at the bottom too, because sometimes after it stops, they'll come up and hit it. Then when you go to give it that next pop, you'll have a fish on. So pretty easy fishing. As you can see, when you get into these white bass, you know, it can be just phenomenal. I really appreciate you coming with us today, Jeff. Just had a great time. You and I have we always have fun fishing together.
Absolutely.
It's just a great time. But we're on public waters, Boyd Reservoir. This is easy to do. There's probably a lake near where you live that have white bass in it. If they do, find out. If they've got shad, they've got white bass, talk to the tackle stores, talk to the people who are fishing. When that white bass bite starts, get out, take advantage of it. Join us next week on Mountain States Fishing.